Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and boy, do we have a variety of things to cover today. I've got some stuff to share with you, and there will be some downloads on the description below, etc., and so forth. So, without further ado, there's some. I'm just going to take them in no particular order. Okay, masks. We are still wearing masks at this point in public places. Now, of course, when we're eating or drinking, the masks can come off, okay? Although, I was sitting in a restaurant once and we were sitting around without masks, just talking as we were waiting for the food to be prepared and delivered, and the waiter came over and said, "Would you please put your mask on?" Apparently, the waiters have been picking up infections and testing positive and having to step out and wait before they could come back. I sympathized, so back on went the mask. But anyhow, that's normally not the case. Eating outside is a pleasure, and I do that a lot. Okay, whenever it's possible, really, is how I like to look at it. Now, as far as inside buildings are concerned, yeah, where they're public places, don't expect to go into a supermarket or a bank or a government office or anything along these lines, any enclosed space like that, without somebody coming up and saying, "Where's your mask?" If you don't have one on, you've got to have it on. You can take it off when you leave the building and you're outdoors and you're walking down the street, nobody cares, but not when you're in the building. This is where we're at this point. This is the last step. Otherwise, things are moving along very well, and we want it to stay that way. We're beginning to have conventions. I'll talk about a couple of them coming down the road here. And this is the transition. And we're now moving through the next phase of it. Things have been very ordered here, very organized. We work together to get this thing done right. And we're almost to where we want to be, or where you would like us to be, okay? Now, yes. One thing we've been waiting for some time now, and it is out, is the National Action Plan for Climate. And I have to say right off the bat, this is a highly politicized topic in North America, Europe, and everywhere else. It's not here particularly so. And this government has made it clear for some time that we will do our best to be helpful. Panama is a carbon negative country. In other words, we absorb more of it than we let out, and that we share with others. And that's because we're about 60% covered with forests. That makes a big difference. And we have a lot of hydroelectric power. It's a very important element in our electricity grid. We have both wind and solar, although they're small, they are still very active here, and they do contribute to the national linkage and so on. So we are in good shape right from the beginning. And indeed, it's a rather dramatic difference. So that's all very nice. And as the government points out, when it put forward with the plan, we're just like one grain of sand in a very big beach here. We are a small country. But that does not mean we aren't serious about it. And this is the first public step. It is a summary of what is being prepared for these years between now and 2030. There should be another plan for post-2030, but they can wait on that for a little while. I think this is going to be where they have to really work for the moment. Does not have all the details, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and so on. All it would be very nice, except it takes a great deal of planning to make these things work. And this is 94 pages, and it's basically very, very exhaustive. It covers a wide area, but different sections are at different stages of development. I mean, we're very big on mangrove preservation right at the moment for good reason. They're very important to reducing beach erosion and coastal flooding and things of this sort, which are concerns and will probably grow over the next few years. So we have to put the priorities where we think it best. That's, I think, is what the government is saying to us. However, it doesn't miss a beat. It covers everything under the sun. And I will have copies of it for you to download. Of course, it's in Spanish. However, I had missed the fact, I'm a little slow on these things, that Google Translate now will translate a PDF. So I had the PDF translated into English. Came out pretty well. I mean, the text is fine. some of the artwork and some of the long lists with tiny type and what have you gets screwed up, and it's not very pretty to look at. But the text is there. It's a lot of it. So, and I think you see most of the tables and what have you come through reasonably well. So that it will also be available for download here. But you might as well get used to it. We all have to get used to it. This is the beginning, and we're going to be hearing more about it over coming months, regardless of people's opinions. And that's how there is to it. So we will have to, ours will be expressed. Rest assured, everything's going to be discussed over and over and over and over again. This is just the beginning. This, how the society operates basically, is in a consensus. And when we all understand, we want to, more or less, most people understand we have to move in one direction. They, even if they don't like it, they work together. Recently we've had on 2 occasions now, one with the airline, another with construction unions, that could have led to strikes that would have really deeply disrupted the economy at this critical point. And in both instances, both were taken care of. I'm not surprised. I mean, people sat down and got serious, and I was particularly impressed with the construction people who were tough nuts to crack sometimes. And they stuck by their guns. That's their right. This is democracy. But they, when it came down, push came to shove, instead of striking, they came to an agreement. They struck one with the business community, and glory hallelujah. That puts that off. That's for the next 3 years of what their rates will be. And they were quite modest in the final analysis because they just don't have enough employment in that sector, and they know that. People are reasonable, so we don't turn into a hate fest. You know, we just try to do our best to get for our side needs, and then we come to some sort of agreement with everybody else, and we have ourselves a plan. Is what it basically boils down to. It will be the same here, sure, in climate action. And again, it's not going to be a debate over what's causing it. It's going to be a debate over what to do about it as it comes, as it hits, and it will. It just, is the Pacific rising here in Panama? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, we know that. I mean, after all, if you're going to build a canal, the first thing you do before you build it is you get to sea level. And so this nation has 118 years of continuous measurement of sea level, and I'm going to toss up this graph up on the screen for you to take a look at. It isn't pretty. It isn't meant to be pretty. It's not there to impress anybody. It simply is the results of 118 years of this measurement. The red line, which I have boldened a little bit because it was hard to see in the original, is the trend line. So yes, they're going up. Is that enough to cause concern and so on? All these other questions have to be dealt with separately. But the point is to understand that from the perspective of Panama, this is very important. When you're half the size of Florida and your coastline is larger, you have much more coastline than Florida, you really care about these things, especially when you find that some places in Florida are having some problems. Likewise in California with the Pacific Ocean. And this is the same ocean. Also keep in mind, too, that everywhere you go, you're going to be finding this sort of thing going on, particularly on the coasts. After all, in the entire Western Hemisphere, as far as I know, there are only 2 countries that don't have an ocean coast, and that's lots and lots of countries out there. Those are Bolivia and Paraguay. And Paraguay has a major river that it sends boats down full of goods to be placed on ships to be sent out. That's where how they do their ocean trade is first through the river, and there has not been enough water often for this to work. It's caused them a lot of problems. This is a major issue, and it's going to continue being one. Regardless of what the rest of us think about it, whatever is, what the climate does, it will do whenever there's a major problem, be it in the western part of the U.S. or in the permafrost of Siberia or whatever. It's not up to us. The best we can do is try to protect ourselves. And this is that movement. So I'm pleased to say that the country at least is carbon negative. That's a plus from everyone's perspective. But is now, I think, very seriously at work, looking at the most critical aspects. They can't deal with everything overnight, but they will try, and it will be done in consultation with community groups. That's, again, going to have to be very important here. So that's available for anyone who's interested in it. It's a lot to work through, but some people want to, so I'm not to complain at all. Now, going from climate, let's go to weather. Today, the Weather Service here said, well, you know, the rainy season transition is underway. And indeed it is. It's nothing terrific, guys. I mean, I'm amused sometimes. People seem to think it's like, I don't know, Seattle in terms of rain, or maybe Puerto Rico and hurricane season or something. We're not that wet. But we do get rain, and it's definitely heavier during a portion of the year. There's a front that moves up from South America to Central America, and then from Central America back, and so forth, each time during the course of a year, and once each way, and that is the marking of the change in our seasons. Apparently what's happened here is that it was on schedule in eastern Panama, and it zipped right across central Panama, where I am speaking from now, and so we're getting it a few days early, and it will be moved faster, yet it is now coming to the west, the far west in Boquete and so forth. So it's early there, it's early here, but it's right on schedule in the east. So it all depends on what the norm is. So for some of us, it's earlier than normal, but it's not a shocker. And no, we don't get drenched every time we walk out the door. It's nothing like that at all. In Panama City, the rainiest months are October, that's number 1, and November, which is number 2. Otherwise, though, I mean, it's welcome. We get along fine. Rain is necessary for any tropical country, and it certainly makes this one all the more beautiful. So that's underway now. That's in the future as this goes on. And somebody writes and asks, I'll say, good thing to bring along a small umbrella with you just in case. That's to come, though. It's not so serious now. We get used to this stuff. People would just simply stand under an awning or step into a store or something and wait for the 20 minutes for the thing to pass over and then walk out again. So let's not get too worried about it yet. Conventions. Yeah, we got conventions. We've had some expositions, really, commercial ones going on over at the new convention center, apparently quite successfully. I think we had 1,100, I believe, bicyclists come in they were running 2 tours, or not competitions, tours of competition in bicycling. And let's see if I've got one of them was 88 kilometers, that's 55 miles, and the other's 135 kilometers, which is about 84 miles. That's a pretty impressive amount, and these are bicyclists from all over from the United States down to Argentina. I mean, from all over the Western Hemisphere, and it's quite something. And I can just imagine traffic backs up a little. This was on Sunday. I haven't heard what the results are, where we stand with it, but that's a convention for you right there. They started from the new center. That's where they picked up all their gear and their numbers and everything else. I was a marathoner, so I know the routine from that kind of race. Otherwise, a lot of the problem here recently has been not having enough projects, enough work for the working class people, if you want to call them that. They're our lower middle class. I hate terms like that. They're our fellow citizens, and they are responsible for building a lot of the country, like the construction unions I was just talking about, but much broader than that, many other things too. And it's our major projects that often get them in and involved. And the private sector has not been providing very much at all, and that's really the construction business. And guys, I tell you, I'm concerned with that sector. It's the real estate sector. They are so far behind, and they're so out of touch with what's happening in their own market. It just leaves me breathless. I mean, I've worked on this for years, literally here, and it's like banging your head against a wall. In any event, they have not been able to provide what really is going to grab people and bring them in to buy. And that is still way too quiet. The public side is moving along, and it's got more going. We have a $292 million project to improve the roads to the east of the country. Now, that's even beyond Lake Guyana, which is my area, when the east was Panama province, which I love dearly, but that's to move right on in to the remainder of Panama province. all the way down to the Darien province and into that. This is very bold. This is what has to be done to get the country all put together in one piece. And it's overdue. I'm very happy to see it. I was especially pleased. Now, you may do this in your home countries. I don't know. But I've worked in so many different countries, and most of them this isn't done. And what I was interested in is that the budgets for that $292 million is budgeted so that it includes maintenance for 10 years. And there are two road projects, 10 years for one of them and maintenance for 11 years for the other. I don't know why a year's difference, but there's a reason. So they actually have it budgeted in. Now, the actual amount having to be spent on the road may be more than that. We don't know. But the key point is that money is already set aside and obligated for that activity. Instead of, which is too often happened in my experience, the money's there to actually build the road, but then 5 years later or 10 years later they have some serious rains or something like that, and there's all sorts of repairs needed, and where are they going to find the money? This is what is very useful. So I like to see that kind of forward planning. There's a lot of it going on. We have a growing sophistication here in so many different respects, and it's coming along at a very good time in history when we're building. We need that sort of sophistication, if you ask me. Now let's see, what else do we have here? That's really basically it. I don't want to go on forever, so I'm going to bring it to a close here. I'm going to go back to some of these topics and discuss them in a little bit more detail at another time. I'm going to include one download, though, which might interest some of you. It's really fun. It's history. It's real. It's accurate. The young man at the time who wrote it was a graduate student at UCLA. He was going to go on to graduate with magna cum laude and so forth. He wrote this is drawn from his master's thesis. He is now a doctor and associate professor of urban planning, what have you, at Clemson. He's done very well for himself. This was first posted as a PDF. Oh, good Lord! I think 2007, maybe earlier than that, actually. I seem to have seen it forever, and I've always kept a copy of it around because it's really, really well written. It's very interesting. It's called From Horsepower to Horsepower. It's a transition from the use of horses to the internal combustion engine. You know, it sounds boring. It's not. It's a piece of history. And the amusing part, it centers on a conference. It starts with a conference in New York, the first international urban planning conference in history. And, you know, these days, if you have, as this was, a 10-day conference, you're spending a lot of money to ship somebody all the way to, in 1898, by ship, of course, and Lord knows what else, railroad, car, etc. We say Vienna and Austria, all the way to New York City. And then keep them there for 10 days, feed them in the horse, and then bring them back. And likewise for the other major cities in Europe and in Asia that I don't know them all, but who contributed delegations to this. So if you're going, and it's the very first one of its kind, you can imagine how exciting that is and how people want to be there. And because urban planners had a very significant problem, and it was driving them all to distraction, and they did not know what to do about it. So the first order of business was to come up with something, some kind of solution that could get them through this, what looked like a impending disaster in just 10 or 20 or 30 years down the road. And they were so incapable of seeing what, as it turns out, was already there to be seen, but was considered a frill, and that they missed it. And they closed down the conference after 3 days and sent everybody home. Oh, wow. Would I want to show back up in Vienna or in Berlin or in Paris or in London and say, oh, well, yeah, we closed out a little early here. We didn't actually accomplish anything. So, but I met a lot of people. So it's a good example of how we can often find solutions to our worst problems that are already here, but they aren't recognized yet, and they will be. And when they are, well, sometimes, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So suddenly you need something, and then you realize that thing over there you're looking at that seems so silly and frivolous maybe you work better than you thought, and bingo, you got something going. So I'm going to put that up too. It's probably been downloaded 1 million or 2 million or 3 million or 4 million times, and it's and for good reason. It's a very popular one that's used for students to introduce them to this sort of thing, as well as all of us. So that's it. That's so the stuff down there for you, if you want it. And I also have the links to the conferences I talked about. There's the Bloomberg conference. Oh yeah, I don't want to forget that. This is coming up in May. We have all sorts of conferences coming down. These are important conventions. The Bloomberg New Economy Convention is a big one. We're also going to be, a couple months or so after that, I'll have a link to that too, the seat of the, that's the 6th, I think, annual blockchain conference here. So we're going to have people in blockchain, cryptocurrencies, everything else here in large numbers as well. That's a that is a Latin American conference. The website for Bloomberg's is in English. The one for the blockchain is in Spanish, but I'll try to provide a link that should work for people if they're not familiar with how using Google or another service to translate a web page. So we'll have those up too, so you get an idea of what they're like. So it's sort of cool to have, you might say, one of the great titans, one of the great news services and investment services in the world having a convention here, and also one of the newest groups, new kids on the block, so to speak, which is in the process of changing things to a whole new approach. Now, this is not El Salvador here. This is Panama. So we've been talking about this for some time. The cryptocurrency question has been well researched and discussed. Eventually there'll be policy on it. It will come out. But let's just say we're not El Salvador. We don't jump in. We value our money too much. So we'll be doing, but we are not turning our backs and walking away because it's new and different. No, not at all. So a lot happening. It's happening here. And some of you may actually run into some of it if you do come down during those periods when we're having some of these conventions going. I hope whenever you do get down that you will have a good trip, and we will look forward to greeting you. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.